Hello everyone and welcome back to our reading of The Swiss Family Robinson. Today's chapter, The Captive Ostrich. Let's get started. As evening approached, the bear's paws that were stewing for supper sent forth savory odors, and we sat talking round the fire while listening anxiously for sounds heralding the return of our young explorers. At last the tramp and beat of hoofs struck our ears. The little troop appeared crossing the open ground before us. At a sharp trot and a shrill ringing cheer greeted us as we rose and went to meet them. They sprang from their saddles. The animals were set at liberty to refresh themselves, and the riders eagerly came to exhibit their acquisitions and give an account of themselves. Funny figures they cut. Franz and Jack had each a young kid slung on his back, so that the four legs tied together stuck out under their chins. Fritz's game bag looked remarkably queer. Round lumps, sharp points, and an occasional movement seemed to indicate a living creature or creatures within. "Hurrah for the chase, father!" cried Jack. "Nothing like real hunting after all, and just to see how Storm and Grumble go along over a grassy plain. It is perfectly splendid. We soon tired out the little antelopes and were able to catch them." "Yes, father," said Franz, "and Fritz has 2 Angora rabbits in his bag, and we wanted to bring you some honey. Only think, such a clever bird, a cuckoo showed us where it was." "My brothers forget the chief thing," said Fritz. "We have driven a little herd of antelopes right through the gap into our territory, and there they are, all ready for us to hunt when we like, or to catch and tame." "Well done," cried I. "Here is indeed a list of achievements. But to your mother and me, the chief thing of all is God's goodness in bringing you safe back to us. Now let us hear the whole story, that we may have a definite idea of your performances." "We had a splendid ride," said Fritz, "down Glen Verdant and away to the defile through our rocky barrier. And the morning was so cool and fresh that our steeds galloped along, nearly the whole way at the top of their speed. When we had passed through the gap, we moderated our furious pace and kept our eyes open on the lookout for game. We then trotted slowly to the top of a grassy hill from whose summit we saw 2 herds of animals, whether antelopes, goats, or gazelles we did not know, grazing on the side of the stream below us. We were about to gallop down and try to get a shot at them when it struck me that it would be wiser to try and drive the whole herd through the gap into our own domain, where they would be shut up, as it were, in a park, free and yet within reach. Down the hill we rode as hard as we could go, formed in a semicircle behind the larger herd, magnificent antelopes, and aided by the dogs, with shouts and cries drove them along the stream toward the gap. As we came near the opening, they appeared inclined to halt and turn like sheep about to be driven into the butcher's yard, and it was all we could do to prevent them from bolting past us. But at length one made a rush at the opening, and the rest following. They were soon all on the other side of the frontier, and inhabitants of New Switzerland. Capital, I said. Capital, my boy, but I don't see what is to make them remain inhabitants of our domain, or to prevent them from returning through the gap whenever they feel inclined. Stop, Fowler, he replied. You interrupt me too soon. We thought of that possibility too, and provided against it. We stretched a long line right across the defile and strung on it feathers and rags and all sorts of other things which danced and fluttered in the wind. It looked so strange that I am perfectly certain the herd will never attempt to pass it. Well done, said I. The antelopes are welcome to New Switzerland, but, my boy, I added, I cannot say the same for the rabbits you have there. They increase so rapidly that if you establish a colony of the little wretches, your next difficulty will be to get rid of them. True, he replied, but my idea was to place them upon Whale Island, where they would find abundant food and at the same time in no way trouble us. May I not establish a warren there? It would be so useful. Do you know, my eagle caught these pretty little fellows for me. I saw a number of them running about and so unhooded him, and in a few minutes he brought me 3, one dead with whose body I rewarded him, and these 2 here unhurt. Now, Fowler, said Jack, interrupting him, do listen to me and hear my story, or else Fritz will begin upon my adventures and tire you out with his rigmarole descriptions. Certainly, Jack, I said. I'm quite ready to listen to you. First and foremost, how did you bring down those beautiful little animals you have there? Oh, we galloped them down. The dogs sniffed about in the grass while Fritz was away after the rabbits. Out popped those little fawns, and away they went bounding and skipping at the rate of 30 miles an hour, with Storm, Grumble, and the dogs at their heels. In about a quarter of an hour, we had left the dogs behind and were close upon our prey. Down went the little creatures in the grass, and overcome with terror and fatigue, were at our mercy. So we shouted to Fritz and... My dear boy, said I, according to your statement, Fritz must have been 7 miles and a half off. Oh, well, Fowler, perhaps we did not ride for quite a quarter of an hour, and of course I can't say exactly how fast we were going. And then, you see, the fawns did not run in a straight line. At any rate, Fritz heard us, and he and Franz and I leashed the legs of the pretty creatures, and then we mounted again and presently saw a wretch of a cuckoo, who led us ever so far out of our course by cuckooing, making faces at us, and then hopping away. Franz declared it must be an enchanted princess, and so I thought I would rid it of its spell, but Fritz stopped me shooting it, and said it was a honey indicator, and that it was leading us probably to a bee's bike. So we spared its life, and presently, sure enough, it stopped close by a bee's nest in a hollow tree. This was capital, we thought, and we were in a great hurry to taste the honey. I threw in a lot of lighted lucifer matches, but somehow it did not kill the bees at all, but only made them awfully angry, and they flew out in a body and stung me all over. I rushed to Storm and sprang on his back, but though I galloped away for bare life, it was an age before I got rid of the little wretches. And now my face is in a perfect fever. I think I will get Mother to bathe it for me. Off rushed the noisy boy, leaving Fritz and me to see to the fawns and examine the rabbits. With these latter, I determined to do as Fritz proposed, namely to colonize Whale Island with them. I was all the more willing to do this because I had been considering the advisability of establishing on that island a fortress to which we might retreat in any extreme danger. and where we should be very thankful in case of such a retreat to possess means of obtaining a constant supply of animal food. We ministered to the wants of the antelopes. Then my wife summoned us to dinner. The principal dish in this meal consisted of the bear's paws, most savory smelling delicacies, so tempting that their close resemblance to human hands, and even the roguish beef thumb from Jack did not prevent a single member of the family from enjoying them most heartily. Supper over, we lit our watch fire and retired to our tent and slept soundly. We had been working very diligently. The bear's meat was smoked, the fat melted down and stored, and a large supply of bamboos collected. So I wished to make yet another excursion, and at early dawn I aroused the boys. Fritz mounted the mule, I rode Lightfoot, Jack and Franz took their usual steeds, and with the two dogs we galloped off to try to capture one of the ostriches we had seen earlier. Ernest watched us depart without the slightest look or sigh of regret, and returned to the tent to assist his mother and study his books. Our steeds carried us down the green valley at a rapid rate, and we followed the direction we had pursued on our former expedition. We soon reached Turtle Marsh, and then, filling our water flasks, we arrived at the rising ground where Fritz discovered the mounted Arabs. As Jack and Franz wanted a gallop, I allowed them to press forward. The two boys were still at some distance from us, when suddenly 4 magnificent ostriches rose from the sound where they had been sitting. Jack and Franz perceived them, and with a great shout drove them toward us. In front ran a splendid male bird, his feathers of shining black, and his great tail plume waving behind. 3 females of an ashen grey color followed him. They approached us with incredible swiftness, and were within gunshot before they perceived us. Fritz had had the forethought to bind up the beak of his eagle, so that should he bring down an ostrich, he might be unable to injure it. He now threw up the falcon, which towering upward swooped down the head of the foremost bird, and so confused and alarmed him that he could not defend himself nor continue his flight. So greatly was his speed checked that Jack overtook him, and hurling his lasso enfolded his wings and legs in its deadly coils, and brought him to the ground. The other ostriches were almost out of sight, so leaving them to their own devices, we leaped from our steeds and attempted to approach the captured bird. He struggled fearfully, and kicked with such violence right and left that I almost despaired of getting him home alive. It occurred to me, however, that if we could cover his eyes, his fury might be subdued. I instantly acted upon this idea and flung over his head my coat and hunting bag, which effectually shut out the light. No sooner had I done this than his struggle ceased, and we were able to approach. We first secured round his body a broad strip of sealskin, on each side of which I fastened a stout piece of cord, that I might be able to lead him easily. Then fastening another cord in a loop round his legs that he might be prevented from breaking into a gallop, we released him from the coils of the lasso. "Did you know," said I to the boys, "how the natives of India secure a newly captured elephant?" Oh, yes, said Fritz. They fasten him between two tame elephants. We'll do that to this fine fellow and tame him double quick. The only difficulty will be, remarked Jack, that we have no tame ostriches. However, I dare say Storm and Grumble will have no objection to performing their part, and it would puzzle an even less great monster to run away with them. So we at once began operations. Storm and Grumble were led up on the either side of the recumbent ostrich, and the cords secured to their girths. Jack and Franz, each armed with a stout whip, mounted their respective steeds. The wrappers were removed from the bird's eyes, and we stood by to watch what would next occur. For some moments after the return of his sight, he lay perfectly still. Then he arose with a bound, and, not aware of the cords which hampered him, attempted to dash forward. The thongs were stout. He was brought to his knees. A fruitless struggle ensued, and then, at length, seeming to accommodate himself to circumstances, he set off at a sharp trot, his guards making the air re-echo with their merry shouts. These cries stimulated the ostrich to yet further exertions, but he was at length brought to a stand by the determined refusal of his four-footed companions to continue such a race across the loose sand. The boys having enjoyed the long run, I told them to walk with the prisoner slowly home, while Fritz and I collected a supply of caoutchouc. We soon caught up our advance guard and without incident reached our tent. Astonishment and dismay were depicted on the face of the Muller as we approached. My dear husband, she exclaimed. Do you think our provisions so abundant that you must scour the deserts to find some great beast to assist us to devour them? Oh, I do wish you would be content with the menagerie you have already collected, instead of bringing in a specimen of every beast you come across. And this is such a useless monster. Useless? Mother! Exclaimed Jack. You would not say so had you seen him run. Why, he will be the fleetest courser in our stables. I am going to make a saddle and bridle for him, and in future he shall be my only steed. Then, as for his appetite, Father declares it is most delicate. He only wants a little fruit and grass, and a few stones, and 10-penny nails to help his digestion. The way in which Jack assumed the proprietorship of our new prize seemed to strike his brothers as rather cool, and there was instantly a cry raised on the subject. Very well, said Jack. Let us each take possession of the part of the ostrich we captured. Your bird, Fritz, sees the head. Keep that. Fowler shall have the body, I'll have the legs, and Franz a couple of feathers from the tail. Come, come, said I. I think that Jack has a very good right to the ostrich, seeing that he brought it to the ground, and if he succeeds in taming it and converting it into a saddle horse, it shall be his. From this time, therefore, he is responsible for its training. The day was now too far advanced to allow us to think of setting out for Rockburg, so we fastened up the ostrich between two trees and devoted the remainder of the evening to making preparations for our departure. And so, another merry member joins the menagerie. I'll see you all next time. See ya!